This is a battle between barbaric criminals who seek to obliterate human life and decent people, all in the name of religion. Our vision is one of peace, security, and prosperity in this region and all throughout the world. Our goal is a coalition of nations who share the aim of stamping out extremism and providing our children a hopeful future that does honor to God.
President Trump sounding more official than ever, delivering a landmark speech in Saudi Arabia to the leaders of more than 50 Muslim-majority nations, wrapping up the first leg of his first overseas trip as Commander-in-Chief. Welcome to this special live edition of Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. Also, during today's speech, President Trump calling on Muslim leaders to help combat the extremism emanating from that region.
America is a sovereign nation, and our first priority is always the safety and security of our citizens. We are not here to lecture. We are not here to tell other people how to live, what to do, who to be, or how to worship. Instead, we are here to offer partnership based on shared interests and values. There is still much work to be done. That means honestly confronting the crisis of Islamic extremism and the Islamicists and Islamic terror of all kinds. We must stop what they're doing to inspire, because they do nothing to inspire but kill. Religious leaders must make this absolutely clear. Barbarism will deliver you no glory. Piety to evil will bring you no dignity.
Joining me now with his thoughts on Mr. Trump's speech and what it means for our future relations with the Mideast partners is former spokesman from the United Nations, Rick Grenell. So that was a heck of a speech the president delivered today. Very, very pro-American. You have America first. We're always going to protect our safety. But at the same time, we're going to have these Muslim nations lead this fight against Islamic terrorism, because we're not going to do it ourselves. They're the ones that need to be the tip of the spear. Was that the message?
That was the exact message. In many ways, Jesse, this was different than President Obama and different than President Bush as well. What Donald Trump made clear is that American policies are going to be squarely about getting the region to clean up their own region. And I think that what he did today, by combining not only this speech, which was really a warning shot to religious leaders all across the region, but it was also something where he brought in trade. Yeah. He brought in one of the biggest trade deals ever in terms of military aid.
Yeah, so it's when you combine the $110 billion that, we get benefits from that in terms of profits and in terms of jobs over here. But then that means the Saudis and some of their partners, they're going to take the military lead in combating not only the Islamic extremists in the region, but Iran. Iran was definitely the focal point. Didn't you also agree there, too?
Yeah, I think the Iranian leaders looked at this speech and they didn't like it at all, because basically in Saudi Arabia you had more than 50 Muslim-majority nations trying to come together to really rally around the American president. Now, that is a juxtaposition with the last American president, who Iran felt closer to, and Saudi Arabia, remember, they didn't join the UN Security Council because the Americans, led by President Obama, were on the Security Council and they didn't want to be part of a hypocritical body. That's what they said. Then the Saudis started canceling meetings. They didn't go to the Camp David meeting. They didn't go to other meetings in Washington. The Saudis did not want to deal with President Obama because he was becoming close to the Iranians.
Meetings with President Obama. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And probably they're not too happy with the fact that President Obama sent the Iranians, what was it, like how many billions of dollars for that nuke deal? Ridiculous. Let me play some sound.
Too much to count.
I know. Remember in pallets in the dark of night. Let me play you some sound of former President Barack Obama giving the apology tour. Roll the tape.
In America, there's a failure to appreciate Europe's leading role in the world. There have been times where America has shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive. The United States is still working through some of our own darker periods in our history. The United States will be willing to acknowledge past errors where those errors have been made. We've at times been disengaged, and at times we've sought to dictate our terms.
So there you had, well, President Bush before him, you're either with us or against us, and then President Obama apologizing for America and then retreating. What was President Trump's message today?
Well, one thing I want to point out from the Obama clips that you showed is that those were his first, one of his first foreign trips. It was very early on in April when he had just taken office. So this is what the world is seeing, is this apology tour from the United States saying, we're so sorry because, you know, you can blame us, basically. You can blame America for a lot of these problems. We were so bad.
That was about enhanced interrogation. That was about black sites. That was about the Iraq war. That it was America's fault.
Right, and if anything is going to inflame the region, it's going to be blaming the Americans, which is what many countries do as an excuse because they can't govern their people themselves.
Right.
And so I think what we have now is President Trump coming in and really bringing trade deals, as I said, but also talking about America and American values. And I think that's different. I have to say, when he looked at the religious leaders, and this is religious leaders across the region, not just in Iran,
right,
not just with one sect, but he said religious leaders must tell the truth and must tell their people, the suicide bombers, so to speak, that they are going to end up condemned. I thought that was a very real harsh moment.
Yeah,
but it was done
powerful.
in such a courteous way.
Right, in a very graceful way, in a way that kind of takes the heat off of these people. And not only that, you have President Trump kind of putting the onus on these religious leaders. You have President Trump saying, we're not necessarily going to be ideological and think we're going to go into these regions and change everybody and create democracy. He was hinting that there was not going to be a big push for regime change and remaking the region. It was very realist. That was the sense. He acknowledges the limitations of American power in the Middle East and wants to forge kind of an Arab NATO so they can kind of maybe share some of the burden to cleaning up their own backyard.
He literally said, we're not going to tell you how to live. And I think that's a signal that's much different than the Bush era and the Bush administration where I served. And I think that Donald Trump is really reading the American people today, because let's face it, in the Republican primary of 17 different candidates, Donald Trump carved out a way to kind of say, we're not going to be nation builders.
Right.
We're still going to be strong. America's going to be first, but we're not going to do kind of what President Bush had done. I think that the lessons of 9/11, the pendulum swung too far with President Obama, and we're swinging back with Donald Trump, where he's learning from both President Bush's mistakes and from Donald Trump and from Barack Obama's mistakes, and he's becoming the Donald Trump where America is first, we're going to stand with you,
right,
but the political will has to be done in the region.
Right.
We can't do it for you.
No, we can't.
And by the way,
we've tried that.
We'll have a whole bunch of
and
we'll have a whole bunch of trade deals with you.
Right. Let's sweeten the pot. It swung this way and then it swung that way, and hopefully we can now find a happy medium in the Middle East. I mean, it can't get much worse than it already is. Rick, thank you very much. Coming up, the mainstream media is still harping about the firing of James Comey. But do voters even care? We're going to ask them next. And Water's World goes in search of Hillary Clinton. I'm with her! Still nothing. While the mainstream media is apoplectic over the firing of FBI Director James Comey, I say most America doesn't really care. If I went out tomorrow to the street and I asked 10 people who James Comey was, I'd probably maybe get 3, maybe 4 who knew, depending on the neighborhood. This is a scandal with no video, with no audio, with no sex, with no money, with no dead bodies, it's a boring scandal.
You're right in that there's a large section of the country that would like Washington to work on something else, but it is a big story. I mean, potentially, if you have the president asking the FBI director to move away from an investigation where he is told that he's not a target, but yet is investigating the Trump campaign and ties or collusion possibilities with Russia, that's a big deal.
Brett may be right. But the problem is there are a lot of ifs in this whole thing, yet many in the media are running without facts and focusing on nothing else. I'm joined by a powerful panel of bipartisan voters here to help us understand the mood of the country. Okay, so raise your hand if you think this scandal is boring. Okay, and let me see a show of hands who thinks it's very juicy and exciting. Okay, now you say it's a juicy, important scandal. Tell me why.
Normally, one doesn't fire like the FBI director, even if you really don't like the FBI director, because it just looks incredibly bad that you would fire the FBI director. So if you are going to fire the FBI director, it's for like a very strong reason. While Trump has been saying it's how he handled the Hillary Clinton emails, and then recommendation letter, and then he was just going to fire him regardless.
So you don't like the optics of it?
Yeah.
Is that the problem? And who did you vote for in the general election last year?
Well, I voted for Clinton because she's not Trump.
Okay, very good. What about you? Is it an exciting scandal, or are you bored by it?
No, I think it's exciting. I believe that the FBI director serves at the behest of the Attorney General. The Attorney General is appointed by Trump. If Trump lost confidence in the FBI director, by all means, he has the right to remove the FBI director.
Right, okay. And who thinks this scandal's much ado about nothing, and when they hear Deputy Attorney General, their eyes glaze over? In the back. Tell me why.
So I think it's just a battle between bureaucrats. You shouldn't be shedding a tear over Comey. He's just another Washington bureaucrat who fell out of favor with whoever's in government at the time.
Okay, so it's kind of inside baseball, nothing really that exciting. And who did you vote for?
I voted for Trump.
Okay, what about you in the front? What do you think?
So I think that it's highly suspicious that the FBI director was fired a day before Trump revealed highly classified information to the Russian foreign minister and the ambassador. So I think that the timing of it is highly suspicious, and I definitely think that there's a cause for investigation.
Okay, so you're saying there's a cause for investigation. Yes. What is the allegation that people are so excited about between Trump and Russia specifically?
Well, we did show that Trump did have some involvement with Russia, and that Russia did have involvement in the presidential election, that could show that maybe there's cause to concern that the election was fraudulent.
Okay, so there could be something, and there may be cause
You're
for
right.
concern
There could be. Yes.
behind you.
I almost find that this is an investigation in search of a scandal. You made no specific, when you asked, there was not a specific case you could give. Trump's a liar. What did he lie about? Nobody says anything. It's, to use his words, I find it a witch hunt.
There were a lot of facts regarding Hillary Clinton's secret server and the destruction of those emails after there was a subpoena. What are the facts here specifically?
There are no facts. This is all make-believe. He may have done something, he may not have done something. Nobody knows. And why would you have an investigation without any facts at all? What is the collusion?
Okay.
I voted. There was nobody from the KBG outside the booth telling me what to do. Right. So what collusion?
Let me see a show of hands. Do we think anything solid is going to come out of this investigation? Who thinks yes? 1, 2, 3. And who thinks they're going to find nothing? Pretty split. Everybody stand by with Special Waters' words on presidential conduct after leaving office. An investigation into the good, the bad, and the ugly side of losing power. Analyzing how presidents have conducted themselves immediately after leaving office and what that means for America. That is the subject of tonight's Special Waters Words. Let's start with President Bill Clinton, who left office fairly popular but marred by scandal. In his waning days, he granted a pardon to fugitive financier Mark Rich, the biggest tax cheat in American history, after receiving hefty political donations from the wife, Denise. As a side note, Eric Holder, who would be Obama's Attorney General, brokered that pardon. And on the final day in office, Clinton struck a deal where he escaped indictment on perjury charges in the Monica Lewinsky case by admitting making false statements. On Bush's inauguration day, Clinton's behavior was self-absorbed. Instead of riding off into the sunset, he delivered 2 self-congratulatory speeches that competed with the incoming president's inaugural address. Even Democrats criticized this move. But the tackiest move of all was when Bill and Hillary took nearly $200,000 in so-called gifts from the White House to their new home in Chappaqua, New York, including $22,000 in China and $18,000 in flatware. Bill Clinton went on to criticize President George W. Bush's tough stance with communist China, as well as his tax cuts, while giving a series of highly paid speeches and making questionable deals through the now controversial Clinton Foundation. Bush left office amid historic financial crisis and stayed out of the limelight for years. After assuming office, President Obama banned waterboarding, flirted with prosecuting CIA agents for what he labeled as torture, and promised to close Gitmo. Former President Bush, while never criticizing President Obama, diplomatically defended his anti-terror policies. Quote, "I'm not going to criticize my successor. I'll just tell you that there are people at Gitmo that will kill American people at a drop of a hat, and I don't believe that. Persuasion isn't going to work. Therapy isn't going to cause terrorists to change their mind." President Bush held his tongue for years, explaining why to Sean Hannity in 2014.
I don't think it's good for the country to have a former president undermine a current president. I think it's bad for the presidency, for that matter.
After years of work with Wounded Warriors, he finally commented on President Obama's foreign policy moves, like our retreat from Iraq and cozying up to the Iranians. But President Obama hinted he would not follow the same protocol, telling reporters in his final news conference that he would only comment on his successor in dire moments.
There are certain moments where I think our core values may be at stake.
He managed to stay quiet for less than 2 weeks. Through a spokesperson, he issued this statement encouraging Americans to publicly protest President Trump's terror travel ban. Quote, "President Obama is heartened by the level of engagement. Citizens exercising their constitutional right to assemble, organize, and have their voices heard by their elected officials is exactly what we expect to see when American values are at stake." Shortly after that, President Obama again breaking post-presidential etiquette to deliver stark on-camera criticism.
People have a tendency to blame politicians when things don't work. But as I always tell people, you get the politicians you deserve.
Breaking etiquette even before leaving office, President Obama and his team are accused of partisan political surveillance of Trump officials and other presidential candidates during the election, and there's an active investigation into unmasking those names and criminal leaks. The New York Times reported that President Obama signed an order to make it easier to disseminate surveilled information throughout the federal bureaucracy. Numerous reports also indicate that Obama holdovers have been laying booby traps and leaking information throughout the Trump transition. And finally this. So focused on destroying his successor, President Obama forgot about his own promises.
I did not run for office to be helping out a bunch of fat cat bankers on Wall Street.
Well, he did. And even members of his own party, including Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, criticized him for those fat cat paydays. As Donald Trump makes his first overseas trip as president, taking a different tone than either Obama or Clinton, we'll see if they can manage the restraint befitting of a former president. Or should they speak up? What is the classy and responsible way for a president to leave office? We'll let the audience decide. Up next, media bias at an all-time high under President Trump. How do voters feel about that? Our panel fills us in.
This is a Fox News Update. I'm Kelly Wright. President Trump calling for more cooperation in the fight against terror. He spoke to a number of Arab leaders in Saudi Arabia, the president announcing a six-nation council to prosecute those who finance terrorism. He also celebrated the opening of a new global center to fight terror. First Lady Melania Trump attending the opening with him. The project will serve as a giant nerve hub for tracking terrorist activity online. The president now preparing to depart Saudi Arabia for Israel. He'll be greeted by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu early Monday morning. The White House confirming another missile test by North Korea. The latest launch comes a week after the test of a new type of missile. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un warning the U.S. mainland is now within striking distance of his weapons. I'm Kelly Wright. Now back to Waters World. For all your headlines, log on to foxnews.com.
President Trump delivering a historic speech in Saudi Arabia today with a strong emphasis on uniting in the fight against terrorism. His message to terror supporters was very simple.
If you choose the path of terror, your life will be empty, your life will be brief, and your soul will be fully condemned.
Joining me now is former Navy SEAL, Fox News contributor, and the author of The Operator, Rob O'Neill. So he put it in these terms. He said, this is good versus evil. It's not about Christian and Jewish and Islam. It's really about barbarians versus civilization.
Yes, it's about part of the ideology that's been hijacked. And he said that we're not going to be able to kill our way to it. We're going to need your help. We need the Sunni Arab allies in the region on board with it. And we're not looking to instill American values. We're looking to partner for peace.
Because we have tried to instill American values. We've tried creating a democracy in Iraq. We've tried elections in other countries. Hasn't gone that smoothly. I think President Trump's acknowledging that there's limitations to that and saying, you know, you guys can still have your culture, but that culture is going to die if you guys don't do something about
exactly right.
the terrorists.
And this is nice to see. Finally, a lot of times we don't learn from our history. We're learning from it now, and we're learning that we need a lot of these terrorists. I've dealt with them in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They're not afraid of dying. They're afraid of going to hell. That's what they're really afraid of. So if we can get into have our religious leaders, their government leaders instill that if you're blowing yourself up and you're killing innocents, you're going to hell. If you're hijacking the word of God to kill people, you're going to go to hell. And I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but like President Trump said, we're not going to kill our way to victory. We need to educate our way to victory, and we definitely need help with Sunni Arabs to defeat ISIS there, which is only one of the things President Trump was talking about during the speech, because he's also getting a coalition against our not-so-friendly Iranian neighbors.
That's true. Yeah, the Iranians are definitely on notice. And Mad Dog Mattis, the defense secretary under President Trump, is definitely going to kill our way out of it to a certain extent, because he's been unleashed and was just telling us all about it the other day. You mentioned the Iranians. He mentioned the Iranians specifically in the speech and tried to rally the rest of the Muslim nations around confronting Iran, because they're the primary sponsor and exporter of terror in the region.
Iran definitely is. And what we have in our favor here is they're the Shia. And the Sunnis and the Shia don't get along too well. And Saudi Arabia is worried about the nuclear potential that we gave to Iran, as is Israel, which is neat and interesting, because this will be some stuff up front, but on the back channels, we'll have people like hopefully Saudi Arabia, Egypt, maybe some of the other United Arab Emirates negotiating with Israel.
I mean, that has never happened before, and in a strange way, the fact that President Obama gave the Iranians all this dough to slow down their nuclear weapons program might have actually caused the Israelis and some of these Muslim nations to come together.
It should, because right now with the Iranians, because of the vacuum in Iraq, what they're doing with the Iranian-backed Shia government in Baghdad, and then all the Revolutionary Guard and the Shia rebels partnering with Hezbollah, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, and then they have the Houthi rebels that are Iranian-backed, the Houthi, which is always a great word. But they just fired a missile at Riyadh a day before President Trump got there, and it was taken down by an American-made Patriot missile. And they've done it before. They're admitting through their own news agencies that they're shooting missiles at Saudi Arabia in an attempt to surround them as well. Now, this is a very interesting time to get a good coalition.
It's a great coalition. He calls it the Arab NATO. Tell us some about the military hardware that we sent over in this $110 billion arms package. There was some radar systems, if I'm not mistaken. Is this primarily to do what?
One of the things they sent over there was the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, which is the same anti-missile defense system in South Korea. We don't need that to defend against ISIS. we need it to defend against Iran. And that's a big one. We're sending tanks over there not necessarily to fight ISIS, but to defend against Iran. We're going to defeat ISIS with a little bit of killing, and thank goodness we got General Mattis in there, who's good at killing.
Right.
He knows people that know how to kill. We can do that part, but we're going to need we're going to need our Arab allies with the ideology, with the religion, with the realization that maybe we can all believe in a different God. Perhaps, I mean, hopefully, this is one day.
Right.
This whole
this is not happening next year.
Yeah. It's not like this Sunni Shia thing started in the Bush administration. It's been around a little bit. It was
Yes.
that was actually going on back when the world was flat.
Right.
Believe that.
Yeah, the good old days. But you mentioned, it's so funny, the cradle of civilization back then. This was a huge trade route through to Asia, through the Mediterranean into Europe. There's these great shipping lanes, and I think the president addressed this in his speech and said, let's get back to making people rich again.
There's nothing wrong with that, and they have interest in that too. And I've even heard it before, and I've had friends tell me before, when working with some of our Arab allies in Afghanistan and in Iraq, actually yelling at them, saying, look at Dubai.
Yeah.
Look at Bahrain. Look at Istanbul. Yeah. We can have both.
Can we have a bunch of Dubais everywhere? I mean, everything is made of gold over there. I mean, if everybody was wealthy, I don't think everybody would be killing each other.
It's a modernized
Rob,
Arab.
we got to run.
All right.
Let's make gold great again. Thank you very much. Media bias at an all-time high under President Trump. How do voters feel about that? Our panel is going to fill us in. Plus, we've seen Hillary Clinton's pictures hiking in the woods. So Voters World heads to Chappaqua to track her down. We are 4 months into the Trump administration, and the commander-in-chief has hit the ground running, confirming a Supreme Court justice, pushing health care reform through the House, jumpstarting the economy, and moving fast on tax reform and securing the border. But all you really hear about are the accusations of Russian meddling in the last election. The media bias prompting President Trump to consider canceling press conferences altogether. Here's how voters on both sides of the aisle feel about that.
These press conferences are like the biggest thing on daytime television. They are. Okay? You see the ratings. They're blowing away everything on just about, I think, everything on daytime television. What I'd love to do is stop them. It's not fair to the people.
All right, we're back with our focus group and pollster Lee Carter, president of Maslansky and Partners, who conducted those dials to explain what we're seeing. So it looks like it was a partisan breakdown. What are the independents thinking about what he said about canceling the press conferences?
This, to me, was the most surprising thing so far. We've seen Republicans love everything Trump says. Democrats pretty much hate it. Independents, for the first 100 days, by and large, were right along with Republicans, giving him the benefit of the doubt. They're losing some support there. You could see the support was softening a little bit, and they're questioning why would he not want to have an open and free press?
Well, I think independents would probably enjoy President Trump giving the press conferences. I think everybody likes to see that. Let me see a show of hands. Who thinks the press is unfair to President Trump? Okay. And who thinks the press is doing a very good job uncovering what they need to uncover? Okay. So for you're saying the press is doing a good job, and the president said it's all fake news. Why do you think the press is doing a good job?
Listen, I don't think that he helps matters any. I think he goes on Twitter and he blasts off and says whatever he wants, and he knows how to game the system. He knows what he's doing with the media. As far as what he's doing with getting away from press conferences, who needs that old model when you have a Twitter account like he does? People want to hear from him. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And unfortunately, the current communication system is so disorganized that what you have is Spicer going up saying things, and you have other pundits basically saying the opposite of what they're saying. So it's not such a bad thing for him.
Okay, you disagree?
Well, the relationship between the president and the press secretary is symbiotic. Both need to be on the same page. I believe that the press secretary, Sean Spicer, needs to coalesce behind Donald Trump and get the message out. You need to work harder. You need to implement that rigor to be on the same page with Donald Trump. And I don't believe Sean Spicer has done that to this point.
I want to show you guys a soundbite of President Trump kind of complaining about how he's treated in the press, and then Karl Rove, who disagrees. Roll the tape.
Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
He's a Republican. He was elected with an R behind his name. Who thinks that he's going to get the same treatment that either Bill Clinton or Barack Obama got? I mean, let's wake up and live in the real world. This is something that every Republican president has to deal with, and that is that the press is against them.
Jessica, does the president have a point, or is he whining a little bit, in your opinion?
I think that he has a point, and he's also whining. I mean, we've talked about this over the whole campaign, that obviously the press wanted to get on him any opportunity because he was also coming at them, right? Fake news. No, you're very, very fake news. Failing New York Times. You know, this is all a lie. The President of the United States of America is not necessarily telling you the facts. We have fact checkers that talk about that all the time, and you need to be conscious of that. Now, do I think the idea that he's engaged with his voters, and now all of us, we're all his constituents, is a fantastic thing? Yes, but he needs to be tempered and he needs to be truthful.
One of the reasons the president tweets so much and talks so much about the fake news is he believes not only are they twisting his words, but he's combating all of these leaks that are besieging his administration. Doesn't he have the right to do that in the back?
Jesse, to your point, the president doesn't have the full support of the Republican Party. That's the difference between him and George Bush. And that's why he's so upset at the news coverage he's getting. Look at election night. On election night, on the major channels, including this one, half the Republican analysis was against Trump. So he's battling across the full spectrum of the media. And I think that's why he's so upset.
So what I'm curious about right now, if I were to look across the room, is do you trust the media or do you trust Donald Trump more?
Who trusts the media more? And who trusts Donald Trump more? Okay, again, it's split. Is one of the reasons you don't trust the media is because when you look at one side, you see illegal immigration is down 70%. Obamacare has been repealed in the House. Tax cuts are coming. ISIS is now on notice. Are those things not being discussed and all you hear is Russia, Russia, Russia?
The media colluded with Hillary in 2016. They gave her free passes day in and day out. CNN gave her questions. So nobody trusts the media anymore. 96% of journalists vote Democrat. Nobody trusts them.
So in the back, Kathy, he's saying that the Democrats and the media colluded more than Russia and Donald Trump. Does he have a point?
Well, I served as in the White House press corps for a couple of administrations, the Bush administration and the Obama administration, and I had just as many Republicans in that room as Democrats. So it's a myth. The media is not all liberal. The media is actually split. When Clinton left and it was the Bush transition, half the room was very excited that there was a Republican in office, and people don't realize that.
I wouldn't go that far. I think there's a lot of studies that show that 90% of the mainstream media vote Democrat. You right there.
I think what's interesting here, right? So I didn't raise my hand, yes or no, for either of the options, right? Do I trust Trump? No. Do I trust the media? No. So I think you have a lot of Americans right now that have so much distrust in general for everything that's coming at us with fake news and everything. You know, we're bombarded with it. Really.
That's a great point. Are people getting so sick of the media and the Democrats and President Trump just going at each other over and over and over again that they're just caring about jobs and health care and their safety?
You know, I've heard over and over again voters say enough with the nonsense. I want to see progress in jobs. I want to see tax reform. I want to see health care reform. Let's get back to the issues. And people don't know where to turn to get information about the issues. Is this whole Russia thing going to delay health care? Is this going to delay tax reform? Is this going to delay the things that impact our pocketbooks each and every day? And I think that is one of the primary concern of the voters that I've been speaking with. And I don't know if you all agree if that's a concern of yours.
Yeah. Well, let me just do this really quickly. This summer, in one or two words, what do you want to see happen in Washington, D.C.?
Tax reform. I want to see
Tax reform is huge. Tax reform.
Right here.
I think I want Trump to be impeached.
Okay. You and every other Democrat in the House.
Jesse, I think everybody should just leave him alone, let him do his job, and if you don't like him, don't vote for him in 4 years. Let the man do his job. What are you teaching your children to accept defeat? Look what these parents are teaching these college students to accept defeat.
Okay, yeah, everybody gets a participation trophy. So what do you want to see quickly happen this summer?
I want to see like more immigration policy being pushed forward, and I want to see more Republicans on his side.
You want to see the wall built, and you want to see Republicans circle the wagon? Last one.
You know, I think one of the problems is we hear a lot about Russia, but Russia influencing the election, that's nothing new. They've been trying to influence elections for a long time. And newsflash from the intelligence community, the United States also tries to influence elections.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
Flynn is something new, though. I mean, that's not par for the course.
We're going to have the panel stay here and fight it out, and we're going to get to the next part of the show. Waters World goes hunting for Hillary. Find out if we find her. With the director of the FBI being fired, James Comey, there have been new calls to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. So we wanted to talk to her about it, but haven't been able to reach her. So I decided to get to the bottom of this and track down the former Secretary of State myself. And I knew where to look: the woods of Chappaqua, New York. Hillary Clinton's been rumored to have hiked around these woods. So let's go see if we can find her. Oh, what's a 20? I think Hillary's been here. How you doing, man? Hey. Have you seen Hillary Clinton out there?
I have not. I'm sorry.
Oh, look. Another one. I think we're close. You guys seen Hillary?
I have it. Not today.
Okay. Let me know I'm out here, okay? Tell her Waters World is here. I'm with her! Still nothing. So have you seen Hillary around here recently?
I have not. I have not. I saw Bill once.
When you do see Hillary here in Chappaqua, what's she usually up to?
She goes to her dinner, her food and stuff.
She's walking her dogs with Bill.
Is she strapped into the roof of her car?
Here's the leash, sir. I'm going back to get the rest of the carcass off the road.
No, not from what I've seen.
Okay.
Grocery shopping.
What has she been getting? Organic?
I wasn't stalking her, so I don't know if she was doing organic or not.
I'll do an investigation.
I work at the bookstore, and she's been in there a few times, and Bill comes. He loves to talk to us.
What does he like to talk to you about?
Just everything. He's a really friendly person.
Oh, Bill Clinton, he's crazy.
He usually eats at the French restaurant, actually. I see him sometimes.
French restaurant?
Yeah.
Typical Democrat.
You just see Bill.
Bill,
I see Bill a lot at Starbucks. He always says hi. He's like, hey. I'm like, hi.
I just want to say,
Do you feel sorry for Hillary?
Oh, man, she got robbed.
I don't really feel bad for anyone in competition who loses.
But she lost so big league.
Big league. Big league. Big league.
Not sorry, because she's done so much.
Done so much damage.
I do feel sorry for her.
So does Trump.
I feel bad in a sense that, like, she really, I think, gave it her all.
She didn't really give it her full all. She never campaigned in Wisconsin.
Then that's on her for that.
I saw a lot of people crying. I had a few classes canceled, like, the day after because my teachers were so upset.
Doesn't that seem a little soft?
Yeah.
There's no crying in baseball.
Are you still with her?
Yes, still with her. Yes.
Is Bill still with her?
Yes? Yeah.
Trump, how do you think he's doing as president?
From what I've seen, I think he's just a bit blunt.
I'm not, like, the biggest supporter.
How do you think Trump is doing so far as president?
I think he's doing okay. I think we have to support him. He's our president now. I think he can do much better.
Is Trump your president?
No.
Well, it's not Hillary. Trump might reopen the Hillary Clinton email investigation. How do you feel about that?
Millie, how do we feel about that one? Yeah, we don't feel good about it.
I don't think Hillary feels good either. That's something you're concerned about?
No.
Not
really.
Why not? Because she already destroyed the server?
I think it might be a waste of time.
Whose time?
His time. To go back into that instead of focusing on other things.
Did you know who I am?
No.
Theo? No. I'm Waters. And this is my world.
Nice.
Up next, tweets of the night.
I'm the one early morning in the dawn. Know you wanna ride now. I'm the one, yeah. I'm the one, yeah.
Time now for tweets of the night. First up, Anne Marie writes, you know, Jesse Waters, I like the plaid, but you've worn it Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday. Have you gone home yet? Listen, if it's not broken, no need to fix it. Next, Just Me says, Jesse Waters, dude, we saw you dancing in the chair. Dance like no one is watching. I don't know how to dance any other way. Caprice Teresi tweets, Jesse Waters, sneakers? You're killing me. First of all, these are boat shoes that you're looking at right here, and no, I do not own a boat. Second of all, I didn't know I was going to be in the studio tonight. All right, I thought I was going to be behind a desk, so feast your eyes on these ankles. Lastly, Jesse Waters, so glad you're back. You look great in flannel. You didn't pop your collar, though. Listen, you don't pop your collar with a button-down shirt. There's rules. All right, that's all for us tonight. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Justice with Judge Jeanine is next. And remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.